It's Thursday, April the 28th, 2022, and welcome to the Water Action Platform. This is our 38th broadcast, and that means that if this was the renowned tennis sporting event Wimbledon, then we've made it to the 38th Championships, which were held over 100 years ago in 1914. The men's final was won by the Australian Norman Brookes, who beat his compatriot Anthony Wilding in 3 straight sets. A British lady, Dorothea Chambers, took the women's title. Now look at those fashions. For the men, trousers right up above the belly button, and for women, what looks like a full-length heavy ball gown. Wonderful. Speaking of wonderful, in today's programme we are going to Africa to hear about the latest trial reservoir trial with e-water services in the Gambia. We also have a very special treat. Earlier this month, 50 utility chief executives gathered together on Zoom to share what they're doing to mitigate the carbon footprint of their particular utility. Well, we've selected key highlights from some of those sessions just for you. But before we get to that, and as promised last month, let's return to the situation in the Ukraine. Last week, one of my colleagues, Louisa Piekarniak, was in Poland. That's Louisa on the right in this photo. Poland borders the Ukraine and is managing the influx of refugees from the ongoing crisis. Now, while in Poland, Louisa met with Klara Ramm, an expert working for the Chamber of Commerce Polish Waterworks. Louisa asked what the Chamber of Commerce is doing to help the local utilities.
So help is provided from a lot of water utilities in Poland. We have just now a list of about 30 water utilities. So I just mentioned the biggest, because the biggest normally they can do more. We connected Warsaw Water Utility with Kyiv, and there is a lot of help just provided directly from Warsaw to Kyiv. But there is also a lot of help and support going from Kraków to Ukraine. Also from Słupsk, for example, they bought hand pumps and just sending them to Ukrainian water utilities. We have also Łódź, and Łódź cooperate with Germany, and they together provide support to Ukrainian water utilities. So as you can see, there is a lot of big but also small actions, just direct help to water utilities. We also created a web site on our association website when we inform about recruitment. So we are which utility would like to recruit, especially Ukrainian women, because they need this work the most nowadays.
The organisation that Klara works for coordinates partnerships between Polish and Ukrainian water utilities, for example Warsaw and Kyiv. I will circulate a link to the full interview, but one last clip that I wanted to share was where Louisa asked Klara how other utilities could potentially help.
So on our website we have also a list of needs. So water utilities from Ukraine just send a list of equipment which is needed. They are mostly motor pumps, power generators, some fittings to repair network. Also just fuel also is needed somewhere. So we just collect needs, and we collect volunteers that would like to help and send directly to cities that need it. So it's a lot of small and big activities.
Some examples of help which has been provided so far includes the recruitment of Ukrainian refugees by Polish water utilities, or the fact that 21 Polish Silesian water utilities have coordinated and financed the transport of 45,000 bottles of water to the eastern Ukraine. However, much more, of course, needs to be done. And with that in mind, I spoke with Dr. David Tyler, an Associate Director and Water and Wastewater Specialist at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the EBRD. I started by asking David what the EBRD was doing to help ease the situation in the Ukraine.
Well, as you can imagine, we've been keeping a very close eye on the situation in Ukraine. We have a resident office there, which is obviously temporarily suspended. And whilst those operations, where they can, are continuing, our real focus at the moment is on those countries neighbouring Ukraine, which are seeing a really significant increase in people moving there and a demand for those services. And to compensate for that, the EBRD has announced back in March a package of €2 billion to help those cities with their immediate sort of liquidity financing requirements, just to simply get through this initial phase of increased demand.
And just help me, the scale of refugees that you're seeing, it's in the millions rather than the hundreds of thousands, obviously. Do we have any granularity on that?
We don't, but we're in very close contact with the cities that we have. But we are seeing cities. It's not. We're speaking, for example, in Warsaw, and in Poland, where they've seen, virtually overnight an increase in population by 20%. A significant impact on the particularly on water, wastewater services, but also energy and heat.
Yeah, and of course, EBRD is spread across, is looking to support across a whole range of infrastructure projects, but it's the water and wastewater ones that I particularly want to focus on here. How are the utilities in Poland coping with this sudden influx of customers?
Well, from what we hear, remarkably well, given the circumstances, but a situation that's arguably unsustainable going forward. And that's probably where we're thinking about what could we do next beyond liquidity support. So, helping companies finance their activities. What might we need to put in place as a multilateral development bank, both on the hard and soft infrastructure side, to support those communities? We've actually prepared, and we're actually developing a product which is a rapid assessment and appraisal, which is aimed at sitting down with those cities, identifying the priorities that they might have in not just the water, wastewater, but in all the hard and soft infrastructure spaces and social services, and actually tease out, working with all stakeholders, what is it we could sensibly do in those spaces. And we have interest perhaps in two Polish cities to start with, but we foresee that this our needing to invest and support cities on a more practical nature will extend throughout all those countries that are actually taking refugees.
So how does the cooling down of the money happen?
It's, the way we work is often it's demand led. So cities come to us and ask us for support. But we're trying to change that narrative a little bit with this assessment. So they will still seek our input, but we will identify what are the priority activities in all municipal spaces, including water and wastewater, in that regard, and then see how we and other actors in this space can then take what we've identified as priority investments, as I say, be it hard investments or soft investments, infrastructure investments, and then mobilize that from there.
Now, in the full interview, for which I'll circulate a link later, David goes on to say that the EBRD is very open to hearing ideas of what more they can do. In my opinion, the EBRD is being astonishingly open-minded. They can act as a vital interface between the city and the suppliers. And if you want to know more or you can help with this, please drop me an email. Now, have you ever wondered how seriously senior executives take the carbon crisis? Well, wonder no more, because over the next few minutes I'm going to share with you some of the highlights that came from some executive level workshops which were held earlier this month, hosted by ISLE. These workshops looked specifically at the issue of carbon net zero and had the involvement of utility executives from over 50 companies from across the globe, as you can see here. The format was simple. 10 7-minute presentations from 10 different chief executives. And we started with Dr. Nerina di Lorenzo from Melbourne Water sharing their path to net zero. Melbourne has set themselves the challenge of achieving full net zero by 2030 and a 50% reduction by 2025. Rather impressively, they are currently on track, even though half of their emissions are Scope 1, i.e. direct from their core activities, and the other half are Scope 2, i.e. derived from grid electricity that they use. Melbourne Water has identified 3 areas in particular where they want to collaborate with other water utilities. Here is Nerina sharing more.
What we're looking to do is we're looking to seek further partners and to work more collaboratively with the sector to do these 3 big things, really to better understand those emissions. So we've now commenced a long-term 12-month emission measurement trial at full scale at our nitrogen removal process. And what we need is other utilities to also, who are interested to replicate this work and maybe to collaborate with us so that we can better understand what operating conditions cause those emissions and how we might change those to reduce emissions overall. So we think with some more partners, we can get the science going on this. So that's one call out. The second one is really around the vast Scope 1 emissions, the fugitive emissions from nitrous oxide and methane. I mentioned the sludge drying pan work earlier. We're looking at a low emission thermal process, and we're really interested in learning from anyone else who has used thermal processes for their sludges and solids. We've also been searching globally for treatment technologies, including researching through a global innovation contest, which is now being explored at bench scale, and we're keen again to take that research, share it with others, and see what else we can work on together with a larger at scale solution. And finally, on carbon offsets, we think the industry can work so much more together to improve both the transparency on how carbon offsets are used and generated, and also where we can share some learnings and potentially group more of our investment and get better outcomes. So there, I think, are 3 big opportunities. And I think I just want to close with, we're hoping to go on a low carb diet here, a low carbon diet. And we really want some partners to work with and are really looking to share some of this research that we think will be potentially groundbreaking, and really welcome any call outs or contact that might be made after today.
Staying in Australia, we also heard from Darren Cleary, MD for Hunter Water, a utility based about 100 kilometres north of Sydney. Darren has the interesting challenge of being based in a part of the country which has been built on the coal industry. Now, this fact means that the ongoing energy transition and how they move forward is particularly challenging. Like many of us, in recent months, they've experienced massive energy price increases, up to 150%. However, the really interesting comment from Darren was on the feedback that they've got from their customers.
Coming from a coal region, what do our customers think? Quite interestingly, we've done a lot of work over the last 2 to 3 years on customer attitudes towards a range of things, including becoming carbon neutral, and there's absolutely strong support. And what we've seen is a shift in the last, over that period of time. It's moving to an expectation that us as a utility will operate in a sustainable manner, and sustainability means being carbon neutral from our customers. And so some of the sentiment that's starting to come through is not only do we think you should do it, but I don't want my bill to go up. The expectation is affordability expectations are becoming quite important, and with with the economic disruption we're seeing, we think they're becoming a bigger driver for our customers and our community. So there is this expectation: be carbon neutral and don't have our bills go up as well.
Customers wanting their local utilities to do even more without any bill increase is undoubtedly going to be a common theme for many of us. And perhaps one of the ways that we can meet that challenge is through the adoption of new technology. Jo Murdoch from North East Water, also in Australia, shared 3 projects that they were adopting at West Wodonga. The one that particularly caught my attention was a 10 megawatt hydrogen facility, which I believe will be the largest in the world.
And the third project I wanted to quickly touch on is Hydrogen Park Murray Valley. It is a globally significant decarbonisation project for the Australian Gas Infrastructure Group in partnership with New on our site. It is tipped to be the largest hydrogen installation in the world, of its kind in the world, and it will be located, as I mentioned, on our site. It's a 10 megawatt electrolyser. It would use water from our treatment plant and renewable electricity from AusNet's electricity distribution network to produce renewable hydrogen. That renewable hydrogen will be blended with natural gas at volumes of up to 10% for supply into the existing gas distribution network. New is as part of this process, New is exploring the oxygen and wastewater synergies, as well as AGIG potentially accessing our biogas for injection into their gas grid. And there'll be potential credits going to New in the future. So AGIG has actually secured $32 million worth of ARENA funding for this $44 million project, and they're looking for some additional funding. It has support from Invest Victoria, DELP, VicRail, CSIRO, and many other agencies.
Not all of the presentations were about ways to reduce the energy footprint. Affinity Water here in the UK shared details of a great new project which is looking at ways to actually lock up the carbon using seagrass. Now, this project has been funded by a consortium involving a range of research groups, regulators and other water utilities. Stuart Ledger, who with his drum kit in the background is possibly the coolest water MD across the globe, shared more details.
But seagrass is a fantastic method of carbon capture, we believe, and has been proven, but we need to absolutely prove that and show that's the case in order to then get it accredited to be a carbon capture potential. And what it does is a bit different to the other things. It doesn't lock it into the seagrass, into the plant itself. It locks it into the seabed, and that's the way that it works. So working with 9 other partners, we've pulled 9 other partners together. And that's a neighbouring water company, along with our environment agency, and then a number of universities. Pulling all of that together, we've put a bid into our regulator for an innovation fund, which we've been awarded to really take this forward. And what we're doing effectively is, first of all, we have 4 trial sites off the coast where we'll be planting seagrass. We will then be taking evidence from that to understand how that is capturing the carbon, and we're working with Florida, USA around that as well. We are then developing a blue carbon framework, and that is we're working with Oxford University to then turn that into a framework that allows it to be registered as a carbon capture element, to really get those blue carbon credits that we're looking for. And then we're also engaging with other regulatory organisations to build up from here onwards. The other important piece that we're also put in place, we've been able to utilise some existing assets off the coast in Wales to then create a nursery for seagrass. So what we need is all the seeds to be able to plant up the seagrass for this and hopefully for the future. So we've also developed a nursery that will come off the back of it, to allow us to then really take forward seagrass and move forward. So we think this has massive potential for carbon capture. Carbon capture is absolutely fundamental as part of our net zero plans.
And finally in this segment, I couldn't provide an update from this Chief Exec workshop without mentioning the large-scale battery storage project that Orange County Sanitation District is pursuing in Southern California. Now, in California, they have massive amounts of solar energy, but the demand sadly doesn't match the times when the solar generation is at its greatest. So how do they resolve this? Well, by installing a huge bank of Tesla batteries to bridge the gap. It's a wonderful example of using existing technology to solve a pretty basic problem. Here is Jim Herberg, Orange County Sands General Manager.
In California, we deal with what's called the duck curve. If you look at this yellow dome-shaped curve, this is the diurnal production of solar power in California. This is the July and August of 2020 average. And you can see as the sun comes up, obviously, we get more solar power on the grid. As the sun goes down, it drops off. And then the blue line is the power generated by natural gas. Right about the time that the sun starts going down and that wonderful solar power is not available on the grid or in homes, what happens is electrical demand goes up, particularly on hot days in the summertime, and we have to ramp up with natural gas-fired generators. So right in this time period, when the solar power starts to ramp down and the demand starts to ramp up, this is where battery storage on a large scale is very useful to the grid. We entered into a service agreement with a company called STEM. They put in about a 5 megawatt system of Tesla batteries with a 32 megawatt hours of capacity. When it was installed and went online in 2019, it was the largest behind-the-meter battery storage system in North America. We entered into a 10-year contract, and it's operated by Southern California Edison. They determine when the batteries will be discharged and when they'll be charged. We get a $300,000 a year guaranteed reduction in our electrical bill, and then 50-50 savings after that that we split with STEM based on the time of use. Again, in our case as a large utility, we pay more for power during peak times. That means, summertime, peak times of the day, than we do in the off season. And the battery bank can help us be less dependent on the grid during expensive times.
So one of the things that slightly confused me in Jim's presentation was his reference to the duck curve. I thought it was something technical, so I asked him about it at the end of his presentation. Apparently it's called that simply because it looks like a duck. I couldn't see it at first, but with a bit of searching, we found the right duck image. The next Chief Exec workshop will be in 6 months' time, and it will either be on diversity and inclusion or operational health and safety. If you liked having these short highlight summaries, let me know and we'll do the same next time. We now come to our monthly trial reservoir update from Joe Burgess, and this month we're in Africa. Joe, over to you.
Hi everyone, and thanks Piers. This month's update stays here in Africa, where thanks to these brilliant partners, we're saving carbon and, in this case, saving lives. Our second trial to get underway is a drinking water treatment and distribution technology developed by eWater Services. The trial is taking place in Wellingaraba, here in Gambia. The village itself is the end user. Most houses don't have a tap on the property, and they need to travel to fetch water using fossil fuels for transport and to boil the water to make it safe for drinking once they've taken it home. This trial supplies 500 households with water. It uses smart taps, each one of which dispenses 1,000 litres of water per day, and each litre saves just over 3 kilograms of CO2 emissions in reduced fossil fuel use. The system collects and treats borehole water using solar energy. The taps are pressurised by gravity, and local technical staff are employed and trained to build, maintain and repair the system. The eWater billing and metering system provides consumers with potable water 24/7. Prepayment smart tags, as you can see here, enable the smart taps to dispense water and deduct credit. I had a chance to catch up with Alison Wedgwood, CEO and co-founder of eWater Services. So against this backdrop, I'm happy to be talking today to Alison Wedgwood, who is co-founder and CEO of eWater Services, about the trial reservoir trial in Gambia. Alison, really nice to speak to you today. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Would you like to start by telling everybody what this particular trial is setting out to achieve?
Yes, I will. So I think because some people don't know about eWater Services, we are a prepayment smart water business that was founded 5 years ago and really born out of my experience working in sub-Saharan Africa, where we're still in this incredible situation where 93% of people now have access to a mobile phone, but 2,000 people still die every day from waterborne diseases. And we came up with a design for a prepayment smart tap. And so people buy water credit from a local shopkeeper or using M-Pesa or mobile money, or they can even buy it from relatives working in cities who can transfer the credit, and they transfer it onto one of these tags, which people wear as necklaces. And then when the water tag touches the tap, credit is deducted and water comes out.
What attracted you to the trial reservoir for this particular situation?
Well, I think partly because it was not very bureaucratic and speed of engagement. So it enabled us to get the trial reservoir funding in and install the 3 taps very, very quickly. I think, Joe, we were only talking a month ago and things have already happened, and we've started to get really tangible results and real impact. Right now, carbon is being saved and girls are going to school in the last month. So this is our live dashboard showing the water across the globe in 3 countries. And we've just gone over 600 million litres of water dispensed right now and 198,000 tonnes of carbon saved. We calculate it's about 125 tonnes per tap per year is saved. And if we look at Gambia now, we cut through, see the projects in the Gambia, and we can go to the village, Wellingarabad, that we focus a trial reservoir on. And it was about the population growth we had in these outlying areas that we needed to expand the systems quite quickly. This is quite a large village. We've also got smart taps and sensors in the local school water system, which is dispensing many thousand litres of water a day. So if we have a look at one of the trial reservoir, there you go. So that's tap 21 installed in the outline area there. And I'll just scroll up. There's a little bit of work I think we need to do on the dashboard there. But what we can see is real live data. So we're using Internet of Things. The data is coming through an AnyNet SIM provider, so we can get the data using 1G or 2G technology to our live dashboard on our own internal blockchain. And there you can see on the 17th of April, 1,700 litres of water dispensed. And e-water services not only provides this smart technology, we have our own maintenance teams, and we also look after the borehole, the overhead tanks. We clean the solar panels. We provide the full operational service.
Alison, thank you so much. We will hear more again when this trial is complete. For now, it's back to Piers.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Alison, wasn't that fantastic? I mean, I'm so excited to see that news. We now come to our Water Action Platform Stars section, where we recognise someone who's gone the extra mile. You'll no doubt recall that last month I played this clip from the film Walkabout with the final words dubbed by this week's star.
Which way are we going today? I hope we find lots of sand. I don't like climbing up those hills much. I don't suppose it matters which way we go. We'll stay here.
Perhaps the water will come back.
Where from?
Well, I'm delighted to share that was the voice of Paula Kehoe. Paula is the Director for Water Resources at the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. Paula is our WapWood Star this week because she was responsible for diversifying San Francisco's water supply through the development and implementation of conservation, groundwater and recycled water programs. Specifically, Paula spearheaded the landmark legislation that allowed for the collection, treatment and use of alternative water sources in buildings and districts within San Francisco. Paula has taken a leading role in the discussion around decentralized systems in the US, and San Francisco is the first utility to implement policy and deployment around direct potable reuse. I suspect you may have heard of the Salesforce corporate building, which is shown here. It's the tallest building in the Western US, and it has an on-site recycling system. This is in Paula's backyard. She's key to multiple projects which set the standards that will shape how the US market moves forward. Well done, and thank you, Paula, for your hard work. Now, here at the Water Action Platform, when we recognise people, we don't do carbon intensive awards. Instead, our WapWood Stars get a tree planted in their name. Paula's tree is a Malus sylvestris, or woodland crabapple as it's more commonly known. Here is the baby sapling that we planted in Paula's name in the woodland near Gatwick. It might not look much today, but it will grow into this. Once fully grown, it will provide vital pollen and fruit sources to all the woodland insects and animals. So, who will be the star next time? Well, here's the movie clip with the last few words dubbed. See if you can recognise who it is.
It's all gonna flood. Come on, we gotta warn them.
Maybe we can rapidly evolve into water creatures.
That's genius, Sid.
Call me Squid.
With that, we come to the end of this week's broadcast. Thank you again to our sponsors, without whom we would not be here. As always, if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover or potential WapWood Stars that you feel we should recognise, please let me know. Our next broadcast will be on Thursday, the 26th of May at the usual times. Keep asking questions, keep sharing, and keep safe.